College football kickoff 2025. This is the North Carolina Tar Heels preview of the season ahead. Sarah Holland, Kevin Holden. There's really not much to talk about, Sarah. I don't know how in the world we're going to fill time in this show because
no idea.
It's not like UNC has done anything or made any major
changes. No breaking
changes.
News, right, over the past year or so.
Nothing significant at all.
No coaching changes at all.
So it is going to be a little on the wild side. The good news is there's plenty to talk about as UNC enters this 2025 season. And clearly the biggest moment for them happened December 10th, 2024, the day that they announced to the world, a shocked world at that they had hired Bill Belichick, of all people, the man who's won a whole bunch of Super Bowls and just maybe the most successful coach in the history of the NFL, as their college coach. It has certainly shaken up the landscape, better, worse, or whatever.
Right. I mean, we don't really know much about the roster, the talent level, but I think one thing that we do know for sure is that these guys at UNC are getting coached by one of the greatest football minds in the sport, right? To have a coach that's won 8 total Super Bowls, 2 as an assistant coach, 6 as a head coach. I mean, you got to be pumped up, right? I would love if I was in a college program, we had one of the best coaches coming and coaching us. I mean, I would be pumped about what you get to learn, all the experiences that you're going to have, how much better you're probably going to grow as a player. I couldn't help but be excited if I were a player at UNC right now.
I mean, you're part of something historic. This is Bill Belichick walking in at ACC football care. He's not doing anything in this video except walking into a room, and the entire ACC media is there with him. And then, of course, when he took the stage at ACC football kickoff, the world is watching, and the world has been watching, for better or for worse in this case. You mentioned wanting to play for someone like Belichick. It's got to be an exciting thing. The other half of this is Belichick has lived his life with players mostly in their 20s, some in their 30s. I guess the occasional one maybe at near 40, but not over that. These are 18 to 22-year-olds, and it's a little bit of a different animal with them. They do make money now, but they're still 18 to 22.
I think that's been a big talking point this offseason is how is Belichick going to be able to coach these young kids? But I will say, with the way that college football is changing and the landscape of it, there's difficult conversations about money and transferring, but hey, you had to do that in the NFL, right? So it's not like a completely new world that Belichick is entering in. Yes, these players are a little bit younger, but I also think that he can mold them into kind of the player that he wants because they're so impressionable and they're younger and they don't have years and years of experience where an NFL player comes up, maybe can be a little bit hard to teach him the basics, right? These guys are coming out of high school. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for Belichick to say, hey, I'm going to mold you into the exact player that I want. And we know that Belichick is a coach that really emphasizes, the fundamentals, the basics, and development of his players. We've heard him talk about it all off season. And I'm really excited to see, what he's able to do with this group that has so many transfers coming in. And again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, we don't know what the talent level is going to be like with this team.
So you could ask every player in this roster about Bill Belichick, and I bet you get a great answer. So I'm going to list off who you're about to hear from. Gio Lopez, we'll be talking about him a lot. Caleb Hood, Will Hardy, we will hear from Coach Belichick, and Jordan Shipp, again, about the influence of maybe the most successful coach in professional football history joining the college ranks.
It wasn't much of a pitch needed, when you get the greatest head coach of all time talking to you pretty much just listen, but just kind of told me just the chance to compete, and that's all I wanted. I'm not asking for any handouts. I just want to compete, and he gave me that opportunity.
They just gave me a shot. They saw some potential in me. Not that we're like just, oh, you're the best. You got to come back. But they were like, hey, like you can really do something if you like put your mind to it and you change like work. And I just hearing that from the greatest, like you can't like really turn that down. And so, I just wanted to challenge myself.
Right when Belichick got there, we hit the ground running. Spring ball was really good. Just a whole new coaching staff. They only got one coach from last year's staff, Freddie Kitchens. Other than that, all new guys, and we have gelled really well together. I've enjoyed learning from all the coaches, and excited to continue to learn from them this fall.
The players are a little bit younger and less skilled. Sometimes that's an advantage. There are fewer bad habits to break. But I would say also the players are, I'd say, much more receptive to the coaching. They haven't had as long with the way that they were doing it, through a college career, maybe even through some pro years. where they were, starting to develop some habits they were comfortable with, and they were a little harder to change. I'd say, with our players, they've been very receptive to everything we've asked them to do.
We're definitely going to be unique offense. Don't want to give too much out, but we're going to be unique. We're going to do a lot of different stuff, and we're going to get a lot of first downs. We're going to score a lot of points. And Coach Kidd, and like I said, with Coach Belichick, he kept him here for a reason. So obviously he liked what he was doing. So there's no reason not to trust him 100%.
What that means is these guys are ready to play for the person, for Bill Belichick, the successful human being. But Belichick has said from day one that he wants to run an NFL-style program, a literal professional-style program.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, that would excite me. It might intimidate me a little bit too. But maybe most importantly, I would want to know how I get better on top of just learning the habits of a pro. And I think maybe that's one of the biggest concerns is like, players could get better. I think they will get better, but it's a professional system. It's unlike anything they've ever done before.
Right. And I think about this saying a little bit, you fake it till you make it. Maybe he wants to introduce this pro, style, whether it's the nutrition, the way that they watch film, you already look at the coaches that they have, so much NFL experience within their coaching staff alone. And I think maybe it's a little bit of, hey, we want you guys to be, surrounded by all of these NFL minds, right? What we've learned at the professional level. And you're slowly going to start to adapt it as you move forward. But you got to look at UNC and think about how attractive this program might be to outsiders, right? Because if I were a high school player and I knew, hey, my dream is to play at the NFL level, UNC is suddenly a school that I'm like, okay, this is a school that I'm interested in going to because of how much NFL experience their coaching staff has. And especially if I was on the defense, right? I would think about, man, I want to learn from Bill Belichick, and just given the track record of how successful he's been, one of the best defensive minds in all of football. But I think it's possible to have an NFL sort of style approach to this program, but it might not happen year one for Belichick.
So that is the interesting part too, because if it doesn't, there's going to be pressure that will come down almost instantly about that. But in the meantime, the NFL style system, certainly intriguing. Here is Coach Belichick, Will Hardy, and Gio Lopez.
We're running it's a pro program, practice, training, food, schemes, terminology. It's all pro program. Not to the extent that we did it in the NFL. There'll be fewer plays, fewer adjustments, but it will be along those lines. And, we'll use what we need. There's some things that I don't think we're going to need at this level. And there's other things that we are based on hash marks and things like that are a little bit different. The overtime system. Fundamentally, we're going to do as much as we can at a pro system without it overloading.
Coach always talks about tough, smart, dependable. And those are really important. Having tough guys that are willing to fight through adversity, smart guys that can make plays and anticipate things, and that dependable. You got to be able to count the guy next to you. That'll just create a very successful team.
Just more of an NFL-like offense. Of course, it's different when you're at South Alabama, when you're watching tape and they're bringing up South Alabama tape, and then when you turn on tape with Kitchens, it's the Patriots, or when he was the head coach at the Browns, you're like, wow, I'm watching NFL guys and where I want to be. I'm watching them execute this play. So it's been awesome learning from them.
So that is, again, this sort of insight of a player who hasn't played a single regular season game under Belichick. There have been 8 months of developments going on, and some of those developments have not been football.
Yeah.
And as a player, that would be tough. And again, we could probably spin off an entirely different show talking about girlfriends at practice and things like that. But what this has been, at least for the first 4 or 5 months, was an interesting bit of distraction. But I feel like Belichick has steered it the closer to the season back to football.
Definitely. And also, too, I would say one thing that's not so bad about having your coaches' maybe personal life be out there is that the players aren't out there in social media, right? Nothing is really getting released about the players. And so maybe this is Belichick's way of kind of keeping his crew outside of the media. And every time they're, put in front of cameras, you think about media days and whatnot, they're very stoic. I feel like they're very coached pretty well. But nevertheless, I think that maybe I think Belichick and his crew have done a good job to really keep, some stories popping up about the guys, and kind of letting them settle into more like we're focusing strictly on football right now.
So one of the positions that'll be important, it doesn't matter the program, but it's important even in a Belichick system, is that quarterback position. We're talking about Gio Lopez, and we're talking about, I think for now, probably as a bit of a favorite over Max Johnson as a starter. He has experience at South Alabama. Good stats coming from Gio Lopez.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just looking at the passes completed, got 66% last year, over 2,500 yards thrown, 18 touchdowns passing, 7 on the ground. And I mean, you look at what he's able to do through the air, but then also on the ground. And that's a dual threat quarterback right there. I mean, he has the legs, he can move. And I think that's probably what made him so attractive to Bill Belichick in the transfer portal. Kind of piece some question marks maybe around the receiving core, but you also see Maureen Hampton leave for the NFL. So, your run game might have some question marks surrounding it. But I do think bringing in a guy like Gio Lopez will certainly help year one. And interested, too, to see the way Max Johnson sort of rebounds from a very brutal leg injury.
Oh, just one that kept him in the hospital for weeks.
Yeah.
What a tough situation. Lopez, Max Johnson, and Bill Belichick now.
For me, the quarterback battle has been awesome. Of course, as a competitor, you got to love it. I mean, if you don't love competition, you shouldn't be playing football. And Max has been awesome. He's honestly, we've been super helpful with each other. And we went to Man and Passing Academy together, and we honestly got closer there. So the whole stigma that you hate the guy you're competing against isn't true.
I've talked with Coach Belichick, Coach Kitchens, that, the best man's going to play. And, I mean, if, whoever that is, I know Coach Belichick's going to make that, make the best decision. And, I'm just blessed to be here, be able to compete. It just feels good to be able to do it again.
Once we're confident that we know who has earned that spot, because that's what it'll be. It's not us picking them. It'll be that player earning it. Then we'll decide on that. If it's clear-cut, then that player will be the player. If it's not clear-cut, maybe the competition will continue into the early part of the season, and I've done that before.
What do you know? Bill Belichick not naming a starter at a position.
Hey, it's almost like we've seen this play out before, right?
This is Patriots level stuff. If he lists 47 guys as questionable for week one, then we'll know that that's the Belichick we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's been, in a lot of ways, he's been a bit of a different guy. Like these interviews, these sound bites, sound different than what he was as a professional coach.
Very different from the Bill Belichick that I think we all know and are used to at the NFL level.
No doubt about it. Okay, now we've done the Belichick thing. We're going to take a break and we'll come back and probably talk some more Bill Belichick, if we're being honest, and then talk about the schedule that's coming up, because it's an interesting one. UNC's schedule shapes up in a very unique way, which we'll get into. College Kickoff, UNC Tar Heels, back right after this. Welcome back to College Kickoff, UNC Tar Heels edition. Sarah Holland and Kevin Holden. No shortage of stuff to talk about with the Tar Heels. Sarah, I did want to mention that we talked about this just a little while ago, but one of the things that UNC players have had to deal with that you probably don't usually deal with. I mean, players are stars. Players get spotlight and interviews. And coaches at the college level, even the best coaches, they're there. They do interviews. They take care of things for their players, but they don't tend to really be the centerpiece of what goes on. Not the way that Bill Belichick has during this time. So if anything, if you're talking about an education in professional football, this has been an education in dealing with distraction, dealing with outside noise. Do you think it's something that could benefit them come this fall? Let's say when distractions come this fall, they've been through so much.
100%. I was just thinking that maybe it's better that it came in the off season and they kind of know how to, work themselves around it, maybe quiet the outside noise. You always hear athletes saying that they don't pay attention to the media. They don't pay attention to anything outside, but maybe that's a little bit different with college kids, right? So I think having those distractions and them having to deal with it, maybe getting prepped, and how to deal with it in the off season, I think can help better. And I think a little bit of those outside distractions, they will probably tend to fizzle out a little bit as, you get into actual football is being played, and it becomes more storylines within the game itself.
All right. So this is what the players had to say. Specifically, this is Will Hardy and Coach Belichick on dealing with the outside noise, something that has happened a bit the last several months in Chapel Hill.
When we try to block out the outside noise, at the end of the day, you can only control, each and every day. So whether that's workouts or practice, whatever it is, man, you just got to show up and work and put in the work. The more you're focus on the outside noise. You're not making progress each day.
We have a job to do. We have a lot of work to accomplish, and we need to come together and build our team, both on and off the field, our chemistry, our communication, and of course our execution on the field. And so that's our biggest challenge. And what's external is external, and honestly, a lot of it's just noise.
Bill Belichick says just noise. Got to deal with it. And in his case, he and his players have to deal with it almost immediately as we get into the schedule, the meat of what's going to happen for UNC, Sarah. That first game is Labor Day night, so it's at the end of that first week of college football. It's a nationally televised audience, and it's TCU. There is no easing into this.
What better way to start for a guy that has been primetime games just at the NFL level, gets his first college game at the primetime level too. I mean, I think that's exactly where the nation's going to want to see how Belichick performs in game 1 against TCU. It's going to be a big task for him, given the fact that there's so many new pieces, right? UNC football is probably the biggest mystery in college football this season, right? No one knows how they're going to perform when it comes to actually stepping out on the field and that first snap happens. So I think having it in primetime might be a little bit, there's going to be that nerves, that jitter, but if anyone is used to the spotlight, it's Bill Belichick.
That's the truth. Now, there's a point in this schedule where Belichick's experience at the professional level is going to come in very handy, and that is October 4th. That's when Clemson comes to Chapel Hill. Not only is it the biggest game just because Clemson's a preseason pick to win the conference, one of the national championship contenders, obviously it's big for that reason. But UNC has a scheduling advantage in that there is a week off before and a week off after.
Yeah.
Both. That's big for a multitude of reasons.
Especially, just given the fact, the nature of who they're playing, right? If it was any other team, maybe that wouldn't be a big talking point. But like you mentioned, it's Clemson. It's Clemson. They're going to come in here and they're going to give UNC a really tough time. So having that rest as a player, knowing that we get that week off to prepare, to rest our bodies, and then also we can go all out here because we have next week off as well. So I think that's definitely an advantage for them.
So just to throw this out there, by the way, that TCU game, going back to that for a second, Deion Sanders' career at Colorado started with a 45-42 win over TCU, so, which means TCU likes to break in these, high-profile new coaches. So there's a little tie in there.
Yeah, I think we all watched that one play out. I remember watching it play out, and I think my jaw dropped because of what was happening throughout that game. But, I mean, it's hard to bet against Bill Belichick when it comes to these games, right? You think about, I think, surprisingly, I did feel like there was going to be a little bit more like, they're going to be at the top of the ACC. There hasn't been that much of it. I'm assuming that's because the unknown of the roster itself. But Bill Belichick, and just given the knowledge that he has, I mean, why wouldn't you want to, bet against a coach that is one of the best in the game? But it's really going to be interesting to see how it translates to the actual talent on the team and how they're able to come out on the field.
So one of the things that happens too with us, with pundits, with people everywhere is they're going to want to update. This is where UNC is. This is what they can be, that sort of thing. The problem with that, with their schedule, is after TCU, they're at Charlotte, they're at home against Richmond, they're at UCF, and then they're off. Which means you could argue that outside of TCU, you don't know a thing about what they'll actually be until the moment Clemson comes to town.
Exactly.
That's going to drive people nuts in our line of work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's storylines. It's being able to find out, hey, what is this team? And if realistically, I mean, those are very winnable games early on. But you think about the entirety of this UNC schedule and the fact that they're not leaving the state of North Carolina that many times, and they're not having to do, really long road trips that often and playing, I think they don't have SMU on their schedule, if I believe so, if I can remember that right. So you kind of escape some of those bigger talents and those harder games right off the bat, and I think that definitely plays into their favor.
So that's the first half, right? Where there's Clemson and not a whole lot else.
Yeah.
And then after that bye week after Clemson, they rattle it off. They're at Cal, home against Virginia, at Syracuse, at home against Stanford, at Wake Forest, at home against Duke, and at NC State. 7 conference games.
Yeah.
And the first one is a Friday night at Cal. And we've mentioned this in other shows that we've done, that trip west is first of all, it's a 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
It's also not a Saturday game. Their schedule is going to be completely off at that point.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they sort of figure these things out as they go along, right? When you have a team that far away, what's it going to be like? Because obviously, too, I think maybe different teams approach it different ways, but you have Bill Belichick who's used to, the NFL scheduling and where you might have to go from New England to Seattle for a game or LA. And what is he going, all the knowledge and experience that he's brought from the NFL level, how is he going to adapt that and bring that to college kids? I'm very curious to see, maybe the media will never know what that's like, but maybe watching them play out at Cal, seeing if they're well rested and kind of how that plays out, I think will be interesting to watch.
Then you have the last 2 games of the season.
Yep.
Duke and NC State. So
what a way to end.
Your regional rivalries are saved for the end. They're saved for the biggest stage of all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's for a moment hear from Will Hardy talking about that game against NC State. Then we'll kind of come back and mention those last couple games.
Yeah, I would say that game means a little more, especially going to my senior year and not having beat them yet. I'm looking forward to that game. That's our last game of the year, so not thinking about it right now. But each day we take a step towards getting better, and so that's a part of getting better, and that's on the back of my mind for sure.
Will Hardy says each day they're getting better, which is his way of saying that you really can't really think that much about November when it's before the season or in the early part of the season, but we can.
Yeah.
And I wonder if UNC is the most volatile of all the teams in my mind, which is to say this: when they take the field against Duke and NC State in those last 2 games, you could see a situation where things go well enough that they're by far the most dominant team of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so they win both their rivalry games easily. You could also see a situation where they're upside down. And imagine you lose to Duke and then you face NC State with all that pressure on you, and who knows what might be at stake if that happens.
It's funny that, being able to tell this right, way before the season starts, it could go one way or the other, right? Like you just mentioned, we don't know if, hey, they could be a powerhouse by the time they end the season. But I think one of the things that maybe, I think that this could get ugly before it gets pretty, right? You might have some growing pains early on, but for them to, I guess, catch both of those other teams in the triangle late in the season, that plays in UNC's favor because they probably want to go out and prove themselves a little bit against their in-state rivals. And so catching them later, I think, will be better. But like you said, there's also another, tale of the story. Like, hey, things could, not be working out so well at the end. So it's really just going to be something that, time will have to tell. 70
new players on the roster, new coach, several Belichicks, not just Bill. Remember, he's got sons on that.
2 generations of Belichicks.
Isn't that wild? That's something to think about. But in the middle of it is a guy who's sort of been the continuing force through the whole transition, which is Freddie Kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
When this whole thing first happened with Mac Brown, Freddie Kitchens was the guy that took over, and Freddie Kitchens coached them through the Fenway Bowl. And then when Belichick came on staff, I mean, I don't know if you consider it a thank you or what it is, but Freddie Kitchens is still around and still playing a key role. And it seems that he is getting praise from Belichick.
Yeah, and I mean, Belichick has a lot of control over this organization, right? Handpicking pretty much the entirety of the coaching staff, maybe even more underlying matters. So I think it does say a lot that Freddie Kitchens is still there as the OC. And we heard him, talk about, just throughout this, off season about what he likes and different aspects of the team, and Gio Lopez, and specifically the fact that he's a dual threat quarterback. He's excited to see what he can do with his legs and able to, push the ball even further. So you got an offensive coordinator that's pretty high on their quarterback early on. I think that's great. And, again, you got Bill Belichick, one of the best coaches in all of football, as the guy that's saying, hey, I want him as my offensive coordinator year 1. I think that says a lot.
All right. What really was trying to avoid like win totals, number totals, but I keep falling into it because it's kind of where we stand. What do you think? What you've been setting Vegas lines? What's your over under here?
Okay, I don't know. This one's tough. Because again, I think the ceiling for them might be 9 wins, but I think worst case scenario, maybe they win 5 in the conference. So I'm going to go an easy 7. I'm going to keep it at 7 because I think there's some tough games, specifically TCU, I think could be tough right off the bat for them. And you don't know what Duke has in store for them later on in the season. But overall, I don't think that they have a terribly hard schedule. So I think that they should be able to find a groove there. Maybe even early on when you think about Richmond and UCF and whatnot. But I'm going with 7.
Yeah, and that 7 could be 4-0, then 7-5.
And I think that would be a disappointment.
Right.
Because whereas if they start out slowly and then they end the year with 7 wins, hey, they took a little bit to get started, but at the end they caught up. But if it's you win 4 right off the bat and then you only end up winning 7 games, probably not the best scenario for them.
And not to make that comparison again, but that was Colorado and Deion Sanders' first year. They were an absolute force in the national story when they were undefeated through that first basically half of the schedule. But when the bumps came, they came. It was an interesting situation. This has been College Kickoff, UNC Tar Heels edition. Sarah Holland, much appreciated. We, of course, will be back throughout the year on our college football shows. We'll be breaking down what's happening with the Tar Heels. I am sure it will be interesting with no lack of in both information and entertainment as Bill Belichick gets ready for year 1 in Chapel Hill. We appreciate you watching.